Let me start it off. I'm Bob McIntyre, board member of the Ronald McDonald House, and I have the pleasure of interviewing John Sobrato, who is chairman of the Sobrato organization and is unable to join us at the live event tonight because he has just been diagnosed with his home test kit of coming down with COVID. So, John, why don't you finish the introduction and tell us a little bit more about yourself? And first of all, how are you feeling?
Well, I'm actually feeling pretty good. My voice doesn't sound that great, but I was coughing a lot more last night, so I just was supposed to go to Fiji in the morning, so I told all our guests to be tested, and unfortunately, I was the one of all the guests, all 9 guests, that tested positive, so we had to cancel the trip. So we'll see.
John,
Sorry.
most of us know you originally from being the founder of the real estate development company, the Sobrato organization. Now you're in charge of the Sobrato. I mean, you started real estate development. Now you're in charge of the Sobrato organization, which is more of an umbrella company and also has the philanthropic arm. Why don't you just explain a little bit about your role within the organization and the philanthropy side?
Well, actually, I'm chairman emeritus, okay? I've kind of turned the reins over. My son, John Michael, kind of ran the store for about 20 years, and he also retired when we hired outside management to run the real estate company so we could spend more time on philanthropic efforts. And so we all have our favorites, and Ronald McDonald House is certainly one of mine. I think our daughters are also involved with Ronald McDonald House. It's a great organization, and I'm glad to be a part of your event this evening. I'm just sorry I can't be here in person.
John, tell us how you got involved in philanthropy in the early days.
Well, I think we got to the point where our family was reasonably comfortable and, financially secure to the point that we should start sharing the success that we made here locally, being real estate developers going back into the late 60s, long before Silicon Valley was known as Silicon Valley. So anyway, we were in the right place at the right time. And so we just thought there's such a disparity between the haves and have-nots in Silicon Valley. So, we were all writing individual checks as family members back in you know, about 30 years ago. And so my daughter Lisa was actually a lawyer with a firm in San Francisco. And being one of the youngest associates in the firm, they gave her a lot of pro bono work in addition to her corporate work. And so we were all writing individual checks, and then Lisa thought it would be a good idea for us to form a foundation and kind of formalize our giving as a collective group, the entire family, rather than doing things individually.
John, talk about the categories of philanthropy that the foundation primarily supports.
Well, we thought when we originally set up the foundation, and this was true for probably the first 23, 24 years of its existence, that we would concentrate our giving where our business had made a success, and that was Silicon Valley. All the way from San Mateo to Gilroy, across the bay. And we're kind of known as place-based funders, and we try to help all the social service agencies in the Silicon Valley, in that particular geographical area, that serve the people that are needy. And from there, we went into what we call pathways to economic mobility, all sorts of training centers, that sort of thing. College success, we do a lot of work to ensure that people in community colleges or universities actually finish. Primarily work with lower income people that get into school that need an additional bit of support. Of course, we sponsor hospitals. Just about anything that really serves the public that needs, philanthropic assistance. We're there for most of those causes.
John, please tell us about how you became involved with the Ronald McDonald House as both an annual donor as well as a legacy donor.
Well, I think it started with my mother back probably 35 years ago. She sponsored a room at the Packard Hospital. And obviously, that relationship, I think, morphed into our interest in the Ronald McDonald House. One of the results of my mother's endowment that she placed over there at the Ronald McDonald House. I think, to give you, I hate to throw numbers around, but give you an idea how endowment grows when it's properly managed. The original endowment was like $500,000. And I just got a report from the Packard Foundation, and it's now worth $4.5 million. I mean, and that's pretty amazing. When you have professional management like the Stanford Management Company that can take your smaller gift and just do a good job managing it, it just over time grows dramatically. And so that's why we like to endow institutions like the Ronald McDonald House so they have long-term sustainability.
John, the Ronald McDonald House just celebrated its 43rd birthday, and we're thrilled to be seeing more second generation supporters. How have you passed on the philanthropic values to your children and grandchildren?
Well, what we've done is when we set up trusts for our grandchildren, and when they get a certain disbursement of that trust, and it starts smaller, they get a small amount at age 25, another amount at 30, 35, 40 over the years, and it grows every 5 years. In order to tap that money, and they can use it for whatever needs they think is worthwhile, they have to give half of it to charity of their choice. We don't dictate where it goes. And that just gets them started at a pretty young age, getting used to writing checks to good philanthropic, endeavors. But even prior to that, before they even get a disbursement in their trust that they have to match with a philanthropic gift, we make sure that they go on some local site visits, as we call it, go out with staff when we meet with our favorite nonprofits to find out, how they're doing. We usually have one or two grandchildren on some of those local trips.
You've been involved in philanthropy for a good while and have been a very important philanthropist to a broad number of causes, including the Ronald McDonald House. What are you hoping your philanthropic legacy will be?
Well, Bob, as you know, we built a lot of office buildings over the years, but I think our family is probably going to be remembered for those institutions that bear the Sobrato name. The Packard Hospital, the El Camino Hospital, the Valley Medical Center Hospital, for example. A lot of educational institutions that we've funded major buildings for. And we hope that, our sponsorship will encourage other philanthropists to do likewise. So, call that a legacy, if you will, perhaps. I think I believe our foundation is going to certainly outlast my lifetime and my children's lifetime. We've set up a spend down period of like 60 years that, our legacy will be all the good work that our partners here in Silicon Valley and across the world do for the folks that don't have the means to take care of themselves.
John, our last question is, what would you say to the folks here tonight or others that see a video that are interested in the Ronald McDonald House? What would you say to the supporters who are considering a legacy gift? And what has it meant to you to know you'll be helping children many, many years from now?
Well, I think it's important to have a really, really capable executive director of any organization. And I know that when you're out hiring a top executive director, they look hard at the endowment level that's in the bank, if you will. So they know that, in an economic downturn, like people are predicting a few years from now, there'll be sufficient funds to make sure that the organization can continue on a good path. So the endowment is important to hire good people. And of course, it's important to make sure that the organization continues year after year after year, regardless of the economic conditions. Because if you have to raise money for operational support annually, that goes up and down depending on the economy. And it's really nice to have an endowment like the one that I mentioned that my mother set up at Packard years ago. And obviously, the Packard Foundation is worth billions of dollars now, but way back then, it was a little different story.
Well, John, on behalf of everyone here tonight, the board of directors, and the full management team and staff of Ronald McDonald House, we thank you so much for your involvement with the house, and in spite of having COVID, be willing to share your thoughts about your philanthropic legacy. We thank you again.